We date in college. I tell you I want to go in the military. I want to be a Navy SEAL.
And I was like, that is crazy.
Summer of 2000, I went to BUDS, which is basic underwater demolition SEAL training. And I was in the third phase of BUDS when the towers came down. And we had no idea what the next 10, 15, 20 years were going to be like.
Never in a million years did I think that our life would be that impacted. And I was also so naive to think that the 6 months that you were in BUDS, when that was over, our life would be normal. And like, that was just the beginning.
We ended up on the East Coast for a number of years, multiple combat tours back and forth to both Afghanistan and Iraq. A lot of combat, a lot of funerals, a lot of memorials, really tough time. I started getting headaches. 1 second you can be extremely angry and frustrated and fly off the handle, to the next minute you're hysterical crying for no reason. Like, how does that happen? Why does it happen? What I was experiencing, I thought I was the only one experiencing this.
This has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
I think we've been really busy working and building vets, building the momentum of a movement. And we haven't really shared a lot about who we are or what our personal journey has been, what our life is like, what our marriage is like, our family is like, what your integration has been like.
Yeah. So like, before we get into that, like, who are you? Who's Amber Capone?
Well, I am Amber Capone. I am your wife.
My amazing wife.
I am the CEO and co-founder of VETS, which is a nonprofit that is providing grant funding for veterans, many of those that you served with previously.
And I'm Marcus Capone. I am the co-founder of VETS. I'm also the chairman of VETS, and Amber and I work together. We've been working together on this since 2017, end of 2017, 2018. And so this is extremely exciting. I'm a little bit nervous, but yeah, this is going to be great.
I think one of the things that we have come to terms with is that neither one of us like really love social media or to be out in the spotlight.
But we do it.
And we do it because it helps other people. My hope for launching whatever this turns out to be is that it helps more people and it gives others hope and helps answer some questions that we get all the time. Our team at VETS has been really gracious in answering the same questions over and over and over again. So hopefully we can start filming episodes that answer some of the top questions and also give people a look at who we are.
So how did we get here? Why are we here?
One of the girls on the VETS team said, you've got to tell, the listeners, viewers, how you met. So like the real origin story of how we met.
Yeah, we met at Cuckoo's in, what was that,
97.
97.
Yeah.
So what is Cuckoo's? Cuckoo's is a bar, is a restaurant, is a place that I used to
bowling alley.
We'll call it a bowling alley. Which place I used to work at. So I graduated from Southern Illinois University. I actually played football for Amber's dad. Amber's dad recruited me. Sean Watson recruited me from New York to play ball. And so I packed up my things and moved to the Midwest and didn't meet Amber for, I think, 2 years. So I was there. I was playing. Your dad made sure to keep you away from all of us. And then he's a extremely successful football coach. And he went on from Southern Illinois to coach at Northwestern. And when he left for Northwestern, I met you just a few months later.
Yeah, but I knew who you were because I had heard about you in the news. And
yeah, let's talk about that.
I had seen your...
How did that happen?
I saw your football picture in the paper, but I didn't know who you were. I'd only been hearing your name. And I was very determined to buy a red Firebird that I had to pass every day going to work. And it was sitting on the hill and 5 days or so passed. And I was like, I've got to have that thing. And whenever I get on something, like, I'm getting it. And so I called my dad. My mom was like, you've got to clear that with your dad. My parents were divorced. And so I called my dad and he was like, I could go with you on Saturday. So I was waiting, and like, I'm not very patient when I want something. And I was waiting. And so Saturday comes around, I call him and I'm like, Dad, I'm ready. Are you ready to go see the car? And he says, oh, honey, I am dealing with, you don't even know what. Like, my quarterback has caused the biggest fight and I can't go get the Firebird. And I was like, I don't know who your quarterback is, but I do not like him. And it was you. And what I did was I went and I negotiated the deal myself. And my mom signed for the car. And I got it. You drove it a lot. But I didn't meet you for like another 2 years, maybe, or a year and a half. And yeah, it was the car I was driving when we met. But all to say, I saw your picture in the paper because of that situation. And I was like, oh, maybe I don't hate your quarterback. And then I got my sights set on you, kind of. I was like, he is so cute, but never in a million years did I think that I would actually meet you or date you or ever even run across you. I got a call that my best friend, she had too much to drink and I went to pick her up. It was ladies' night. She was 17. And I went in the back door to get her. And when I opened the door, you were sitting on the bar stool.
Bam.
What was the first thing I said to you?
Oh, you're the troublemaker.
I said, oh, you're the troublemaker. I was like, ugh, it's him. And you had highlighted hair, I think. But anyway, I knew exactly who you were. And I was trying to play it really cool.
You're feisty.
Well,
you were like, you got in my face and
no, I
kind of
didn't.
finger and all that type of
No,
thing.
I didn't. You
Well,
remember?
that's how I remember it.
No.
So that's the story I'm going with.
I was trying to play it cool. But anyway, I was
But
like
you didn't.
really, really excited that I saw you. And I'm like, oh, maybe he goes to ladies' night. So we're going to go back next week as 17-year-olds. And we did. And I continued to, and you were there. I continued to go back for several weeks until you weren't there. And then your friend Jason was like, let me give him your number. We made the connection and then we hung out for the first time ever on 4th of July, which is quite fitting. So that was the beginning of the two of us. And we really have been together ever since. Not always physically together because you were away a lot. But yeah, I thought maybe we would date for a couple weeks and we were together. We've been together for 28 years. So fast forward, when I met you, what I loved most about you was that you were incredibly charismatic. You had a magnetic personality. You were so cool, so easy to be around. Like the whole world could be on fire around you and you were like super chill and just easy to be around.
Just like now.
Now you're just about like that. Yeah.
I'm almost there. I'm almost back. I'm pretty much back.
Well, but things had gotten so bad about, I don't know, 15 years in.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, because I didn't even recognize you. Like you were a monster. I didn't even want to be around you.
So we date in college and I tell you I want to go in the military. I want to be a Navy SEAL. You think it's crazy. I think it's the best thing ever.
I did think it was crazy because there was like a Discovery Channel special and you were like, here, come here. Like watch this with me. And it was guys doing pole comp who had their feet and hands tied together. And you were like, I can do that. And I was like, that is crazy. I didn't know what SEALs were.
So actually the first thing I saw was a movie called G.I. Jane. And I'm going to embarrass myself here. I grew up in New York. I grew up playing ball. I don't think I grew up in a household that I would consider like a true patriotic household, even though my grandfather served in World War II. He fought the Germans in North Africa. And so I used to see this Purple Heart that he earned. But I never really knew what it means. I never really grew up with this like pro-veteran, pro-patriotic type of upbringing. I believe that you did.
I did.
And so for me, this was new. And so when I was up late one night, I was watching G.I. Jane and literally thought that this was my introduction to the military. I had no idea. I thought that whatever's happening on the TV is exactly how it is in real life. And so my first attraction to, I guess if you want to call it special operations, was this movie. And they talk about in the movie, this group being the best of the best, and the Navy SEAL teams were involved. And I thought, well, that's really cool. Really, what is that? And so I think what you're referring to is you and I watched the Discovery Channel special after that. And
yeah, because you became like obsessed, and you were reading like every book.
I read. I watched every special I could watch. And so this is still pre-2000.
Yeah.
we were online barely. I think we had
That was
email
when
addresses that we
internets
never
were
used.
like,
Yeah,
"Dur,
exactly.
dur, dur."
And so there really wasn't a whole lot out there at the time. And so if you remember, I started taking out every book that I could find on
And by taking out, you mean renting from the library.
renting from the library, every book that I could find on the SEAL teams in Vietnam. And I think I read almost every book. And, and I tell people now who, there's this, I don't want to call it weird, but we don't love individuals getting out of the SEAL teams and writing books, even though it's more, I would say it's more accepted these days. But if they didn't write those books, I could have been doing something else.
Such a good point.
I could have been a Green Beret. I could have went in the Marine Corps. And I was attracted to what was, exposed to me, what was shown to me. And so I don't mind when people are getting out and writing books and telling their story. I think we have to tell our story. Everybody has a good story, especially guys coming out of the military after 20 years of combat. There are so many good books out there and so many good stories. And if we don't write those stories, we don't attract good talent and on and
True.
on.
Yeah, that's true.
So the more I read, the more I would say obsessed I got with going into the military and becoming a SEAL. And, I don't want this to be the focus, but I think it's good that we tell how we got here.
Oh, for sure.
And after graduation, a lot happened. So I graduate from Southern Illinois. We get pregnant. We get married. And I enlist in the Navy.
Similar to the actual timeline, but it was a crazy time.
And I went off to boot camp in summer of 2000. And I went to BUDS, which is Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, in the spring of 2001. And I was in third phase of BUDS with 3 weeks of graduation when towers came down. And we had no idea what the next 10, 15, 20 years were going to be like.
Yeah, I remember that day. My mom had come out to visit because she would always visit on my birthday, which is September 12th. And note that for next week. Anyway, she came into town on the 10th, and then the morning of the 11th, the phone started ringing and we turned on the news. It was crazy. And you were not at home. You were like out on the island?
Training.
Yeah.
We were training out at La Posta.
Yeah. I think eventually you were able to call me and, like, I literally thought you would deploy like that day. I'm like, but I also thought that, it would be as easy as like, oh, well, surely our intelligence community knows exactly who did this and where to find them. It'll be like a quick thing. Never in a million years did I think that, our life would be that impacted. And I was also so naive to think that the 6 months that you were in BUDS, when that was over, our life would be normal. And like, that was just the beginning, But I also knew that you were exactly where you needed to be because you were always part of a team, which is probably what drew you to the SEAL community.
Yeah, I've always been part of a team. Growing up, I don't think I did anything by myself. I was always I was involved. I played sports from a very early age. I was in a pool at 3 years old. I was on skis at 3. I was in t-ball at 4. I was in football at 7.
And just for like clarification purposes too, your parents were married. My parents were divorced. We were both raised only children. I have 2 half brothers, but I was raised as an only child. And so I spent a lot of time alone, like learning how, like playing. I would literally, looking back, I would play like business owner or restaurant owner or, store owner or teacher or, something that was very like entrepreneurial and solo, and you were playing on team.
That was the opposite. I was shuffled from thing to thing, never left alone, always had to do something, constantly on the go.
At one point in my life, I was obsessed with being a gymnast, but even that was solo. I was a cheerleader. So there's that. But yeah, never in a million years did I think that I would be part of the military community either. But I was raised in a very patriotic family. I had 5 great uncles in World War II. I think 3 were killed. 2 were killed in action. 1 was killed in training. 2 survived. And of the 2 surviving, 1 was a POW and the other was a doctor stationed in San Diego. So I have this letter that I wrote to veterans when I was 9 or 10 in 3rd grade. And it was like, "Dear veterans," it's so sweet.
Yeah, and we still have that letter.
I have it framed.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, raised very differently.
I think what's important too is when we met, like that was it. We were together all the time as much as we could be. You stayed at my house almost every night.
Shh. My parents probably don't know that.
Well, they do now. And matter of fact, I think your senior year, your high school came up with a new rule because I think you missed over 40 days.
I missed 42 days my senior year.
Why?
It's called truancy.
Because you were staying at my house.
Yeah, I wasn't. Okay, first of all.
Your mom and dad are going to love this.
First of all, at one point, the attendance officer was like, "Do you take vitamins?" I was like, "No, but it's not that." Like, I was just so checked out of school. But I was also, not to brag on myself, very academically inclined. And so I could maintain a 4.0 GPA.
You had straight A's.
And barely put in any effort.
Yeah, I was the opposite. I had to work so hard just to get an A.
Well, I was also doing your homework and my homework my senior year. But I did. I met you and like that was it. Yeah, I met you the summer before my senior year. And then you were like this larger than life personality. Where I grew up is where you went to school. And SIU, Southern Illinois University, was, to me, like big time.
Well, it was back then. And we had 25,000 students and, different from now. I think it's like 6,000 or 7,000, but it was a huge university back then. If you remember Halloween every year, the state, actually much of the Midwest would drive in and completely cause havoc on the whole campus. And
it was like featured on MTV multiple times.
Yeah, well, the funny part was the coaches at the time recruited me off of the year before Southern Illinois got ranked ahead of Arizona State and Florida State as the #1 party school in the country.
Oh, so you were like, okay, football's nice.
And they were recruiting off of that SIU got the #1 slot that year. And I was like, oh, wow, this must be a crazy school.
Anyway, you were definitely the big man on campus. And I was just shocked that we were together because I had never had my sights set on something like as big as you, and like it actually worked. So I was used to going after what I wanted, but you were kind of like hitting it out of the park for me.
I thought that was like on your list. You're like, I'm going to date an SIU football player this year. Check.
After I met you, I was like, I'm going to date him. And then of course my dad found out, and that was a little bit of a bump in the road. But
it was an odd conversation. Do you remember when we went to visit him up at Northwestern?
I do. We'll have to have my dad on. We'll get some life lessons
we'll get him
from
in there.
Coach
We'll get
Pops.
him in here, talk to Coach Pops.
Anyway, let's fast forward to let's go back to when you were in Buds. So 9/11 happens, and then you graduate, and we get stationed at Virginia Beach.
Which we wanted to.
Yeah.
Because it was a family place.
Let's just skip over a lot of that and just say that after, and we can dive deeper into this in subsequent episodes, but this sort of happy, connected life that we had lived started to get more and more disconnected because you were just you'd become obsessed with becoming a SEAL. Now that you were a SEAL, you were all in.
You had to be all in. I think the individuals that were all in became good SEALs. They became good operators. And the ones I think that tried to have balance really didn't. And I believe that I struggle with being good at something and having balance. I think later on in life you could have a little bit more balance, but I think when you're starting out with anything, you have to be all in. You have to have full focus on your profession. If you want to become an expert, that takes lots of reps, thousands and thousands and thousands of reps of whatever you're doing. And so for me at that time, it was the military, it was the SEAL teams, and it was the brotherhood, and I was all in. Yeah.
Okay, so help me understand how you were feeling whenever you got to SEAL Team 10 and you were like, "Oh, this is what I have to be now." Like, how do you balance a family? A lot of our life is about balance, and I
Which
feel like
it
that's
changes you a lot, right? I mean, you get institutionalized in certain regard, right?
yeah, I realized pretty early on that you had to make a choice, and I was also, like, super understanding and willing to sort of play second to your career because I was so proud of you, and
Thank you.
I knew that you were doing, like, exactly what you wanted to be doing, and you were really good at it, and so I was, like, righteously angered over 9/11 and just like, "Phew, get in there."
Yeah. It's funny that you were angry. As students, we were, let's say, we were a bit confused. We didn't really know what was about to happen, but we saw it in the instructors. And I think I've mentioned this before on other podcasts that we really didn't know what we were in store for. But the instructors who'd been in for 10 or 15 or 20 years, they just had this like demeanor that happened.
Like a shift.
It was a complete, you call it a paradigm shift, complete shift in the way that they were approaching everything and the way that they were treating us. They went from like this kind of jovial, joking, everything is funny, to very serious. Hey, do you guys understand like what's about to happen? And we really didn't understand. Maybe a few guys did, but most of us didn't.
Mhm.
But the idea was, hey, you guys are going to war now, and you better be ready, and you better prepare for it. And you better take this seriously. Um, no one really thought what was going to happen over the next, really next year. I mean, who knows? We thought this was going to end in less than a year.
Same. Same. I at least hope that. Yeah, and I remember there were several guys that were a generation older than you that had come back in, and they were paired up with your SQT class because so many were feeling like this just righteous anger or willingness to serve or get in the
Yeah,
fight
we had 10 to 12 guys
who used to be SEALs.
used to be SEALs, went out and worked in the private sector, some of them for many years, and then came back in after 9/11 because they had missed out.
Yeah.
Many of the 90s era, not just SEALs, but in most of the 90s era special operations community, military community, there wasn't a lot
It
of
was a time of peace.
yeah, it was time of peace. There
Largely.
wasn't a lot of quote unquote action
Yeah.
happening, and so those folks who got out thought they missed the train, and so many of them came back in across the board, not just our community, but so I got to meet all these like older guys going through SQT, and
yeah.
it was great. We got to learn from individuals with experience.
Yeah, it was wild because and I actually liked it too because some of the guys that you were meeting in SQT, you
Had
ended up
families
getting
or
stationed with
yeah,
in Virginia Beach, and they had families where your buds class didn't. There you had a guy in there, I remember it was
not everyone gets married
17.
and has 2 children at
Most don't.
23 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what were you learning during this time? Because you didn't grow up with siblings, you did grow up on a team, but you were in a very new environment.
Yeah, I mean, I learned everything. Some individuals, some of the guys grew up in the team. Some of the guys got in at 17 years old, 18 years old, and I completely respect that. I don't think I could have got through training at such a young age. I think I was so juvenile, too young to get through something. I think that was so rigorous and so physically and mentally, demanding. So I think coming in at 23 was the right age for me. I used to tell some of the guys that I barely turned a screwdriver or a wrench growing up. I mean,
I'm gonna say you probably didn't ever once.
a little bit. No, I come on, give it to my dad's credit, a tiny bit, but it was more like screwing in a light bulb. That was about, when I had guys I worked with that were, building houses and driving tractors and grew up hunting and fishing, and I didn't do any of that. And so for me, as I was introduced to these things, I got to see what it was like to really kind of roll up your sleeves and work. And I felt like I didn't have that before I went in. And so I was really impressed, especially from the younger guys who brought that. And so for me, it was just about learning how to like really work hard and work hard when people weren't watching. That was the big thing we say is, everybody can work hard when you're in a room and everyone's looking at you and the eyes are on you. But it's when they leave, what are you doing? And so that's the one thing I learned really early on at Buds is that the most important thing is what are you doing when no one's around watching?
Yeah.
So that was a piece of it. The teamwork, as we mentioned earlier, I've always been part of a team. That part to me was easy. But the other part that I learned was I couldn't believe how serving many of the dudes were that I worked with, meaning most of the guys would literally give you the shirt off their back. If they were freezing, they would give you their shirt. And that was something that I was not also used to. I was almost like I grew up in New York. Everything's about me, and I. And what I learned there was that, there's no I in team, right? Like that's kind of a, but it was really prevalent in the SEAL teams that everything you did was for the greater good of the unit. The mission was for the guy on the right and left of you, and you were taken care of last. And matter of fact, you were taught when you came back from a training mission, operation, or whatever you want to call it, you took care of yourself last. I'm going to screw it up here, but I believe it was like team gear, personal gear, then you. And that's how it went all the time. And if I've messed that up, sorry. But it's the one thing I learned is that you look out for the brotherhood, and that's the first thing that matters.
What is the brotherhood?
Brotherhood is everything I'm talking about. It's the unit, it's the unity, it's the camaraderie, it's the you're with your guys over 300 days a year. I mean, they become your family, and so the brotherhood is the family. It's the tribe. It's your best friends. It is your family. It's the folks that count on you and you count on them. And all of that buildup is for you when you go overseas and you go kick down a door. You have the individuals that you've been working with day in and day out every single day. So you have to have that brotherhood. You have to have that tight knit camaraderie.
What do you think is misunderstood about the brotherhood and the saying "Long live the brotherhood"?
I don't think there's anything misunderstood. I think it's exactly what the saying is. It's you can't function, operate, succeed as a single unit, meaning by yourself, right? You always have to have. Nobody can do anything by themselves, right? And I think the community I came from, the SEAL community, and again, the greater special operations community is the same or very similar, is that everybody has a strength, everybody has weakness, and the stuff that you're weaker at, you have individuals that are strong, and you put together this perfect kind of element to form a team that's just when it's together and when it's operating together, it's beautiful. It works as a real living, breathing thing.
So it seems like something that you really have to buy into. Like, if you want to be part of the brotherhood, I'm sure that there are SEALs that are not considered.
Yeah, you're in or out. There's definitely, I don't want to call it cliques, but there's you have to be all in. I was all in. It's all that mattered. The teams mattered. If someone wanted to go have a beer and talk about something, you dropped everything and you went and had a beer and you talked about that thing. If an individual was needing help, you dropped everything and you went and helped that individual. I mean, that's just, and you did that before you took care of your family. And, even at the time there was, and I don't know how it is now, but the brotherhood was more important than the family. Like that was your family, and your spouse and your children was kind of put on the back burner.
I felt that.
But
sorry. I understood it.
I am sorry.
No, I understood it. And I expected nothing less of you because you're just all into what you're all into. And I think for a long period of time, you did try to strike a balance. But then as you get kind of like pulled in more and more, it's very difficult, especially during a time of war, I would say. And I will say about the sisterhood that I saw very early on. There were wives who talked shit about their husbands and, were very, very much in a victim mindset. And then there were wives that really spoke highly of their husbands, had their own lives, didn't live in their spouse's shadow. And I identified that very, very early on and thought, like, I want to be like them. And so I always tried to model myself and my behavior after them. And like protecting your reputation was really, really important to me. Like never acting in a way that would negatively affect your reputation.
And I did the same thing. I gravitated towards individuals that I thought were, really good, amazing human beings, good individuals, guys I looked up to. And, I tried to, work for them, be like them, emulate them.
So at what point did this high performing, totally bought in, deploying all the time, balanced situation become tilted in the wrong direction?
Yeah. So you and I, we ended up on the East Coast for a number of years and multiple combat tours back and forth to both Afghanistan and Iraq. A lot of combat, a lot of funerals, a lot of memorials. Really tough time. I don't think we need to go deep into any of these. Maybe we'll talk about it in a later episode. But for many, it starts to, I think, weigh on you a little bit. And I think for me, it started a little bit earlier than others.
I wouldn't say that. I think at one point someone said to me, I'm afraid to be friends with you because all of your friends are dying. And it was like very, very close friends of ours that were not coming home from deployments, and like an unbelievable number that we were very close to. So I think that it's not like it happened earlier for you. I think it's that you lost so many friends and teammates in pretty short succession. It's not uncommon in the SEAL community to know someone or a couple people or have gone to buds with someone or done a platoon with someone that was killed in action. But I feel like, whether it was your buds class or your green team class, you had a lot of friends, close friends that were killed.
Yeah. And I think it came to a point, I'd say roughly early 2010, where I just didn't care anymore. It was just, we became numb to everything that was happening. I really didn't care. And I think I was confused at the time too. I was just like losing passion for everything that we were doing. I think 2 years before that is when I started seeing, my first psych. And yeah, I think I wouldn't say things went sideways by any means then. I think things just got heavier.
Mhm.
And we just continued on. We continued deploying, continued training. You and I continued. I think at that point we started really separating. I think mentally, we were not getting along on the road constantly. Yeah, it was a heavy time, and I was just searching for something. And I remember having a conversation with the commanding officer at the time at Dev Group, and he just said, "Hey, you need to go to officer candidate school. Like, you need to go to OCS."
Yeah, that was a great decision on paper, but
Yeah.
like looking back, I'm like, God,
I
what were
know.
we thinking?
Yeah, but when your CO tells you like, "Hey, you'd be a good officer. You should go apply." I think he sat on the board of the individuals that were going to OCS, enlisting.
You had some kind of sway.
Yeah, I mean, he was the decision maker,
Mm.
basically. And I just thought, well, if my CO thinks I should go do this, I should go do this. I should soldier on. And as I was going through this whole process, it just occurred to me that I didn't want to do anything. I was really, really starting to struggle just mentally at that time. Didn't really know what to do. And I remember getting accepted to OCS, which is nothing at the time.
OCS meaning
Officer Candidate School. I remember before I got on that plane, I called Cole from the airport, my bud's roommate, best friend, and I just told him, I said, "Hey, I'm not in a good place. Like, I shouldn't be going. Like, I don't want to go." He's like, "Oh, you have to go. You'll regret it for the rest of your life." And I was like, "Dude, you don't know how I'm feeling right now." And I got on the plane and I lasted a day and a half there. I mean, I knew. I mean, I just went in there saying like, this is stupid. I just came back from another deployment. Literally went right back out the door to, was it Newport, Rhode Island?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting. I forgot, we were sitting in a room, and we were told to recite the 11 general orders of a sentry again. When I learned that as a boot camp enlistee years ago. And I just thought, this is the stupidest thing you could ever do to a person who's been overseas a bunch of times.
You had just come back from Afghanistan. This was like your 7th.
No, I literally threw the book across the room, and I was like, who's in charge? I literally said, who's in charge here? And some Marine drill instructor came running over and started barking my face. And I was like, get out of my face. Who's in charge? And they sent me to go speak to the OCS commander. And they probably thought I had horns growing out of my head, because I walked into his office. So I didn't even like knock. And he was just staring at me. And I was like, hey, sir, yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. Matter of fact, I think I should go back to my unit. And he didn't know how to react. Like, he was just sitting here staring at me, this individual who, he's running OCS with, hundreds and whatever, thousands of guys who want to become Navy and Marine Corps officers.
And by the way, this is not an easy thing to get to.
No. I mean, there's plenty of people who get rejected to go to officer candidate school. So here I am, I'm walking, I'm in his office, and I look over against the wall, and he's got a putter and a few balls. And like, you're supposed to go in there and be at attention. And I walk over and I grab a putter and I just start putting balls in his office into.
He's like, this guy's actually
what
crazy.
What the fuck is wrong with this dude? Like I run this thing.
He's like, where's the straight jacket?
I'm just an enlisted guy. I was E6 or E7, E6. And I just said, hey, just send me back to my unit. And I said, it'll be fine. And he said, we make every individual who doesn't get through this program or quits or whatever stay for 12 to 15 weeks. He's like, I'll get you orders to leave tomorrow. I was like, thank you. And that was it. And I got orders back to my unit.
What were you feeling at that time?
I was just gone. I was just.
Did he understand like where you had
come
from?
I think he may have understood. I mean, he could see that I was not all there, that all the screws were a bit loose. And so he sent me back to Virginia Beach. I ran into Admiral Moore at the golf course a couple of days later, and he had already heard, and he just shook his head and he said, first thing he said, he didn't say like, I can't believe you did that. He said, we just can't control you guys anymore. He's like, we let you guys run so wild over the last 10 years. He's like, I'm not surprised at all. We didn't put enough, we didn't hold you back enough. That's kind of what he said. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I said, yeah, you're 100% right. We ran as wild as we wanted to.
My observation was definitely that you were in complete renegade mode, but I also wasn't living with you really because you were gone up to 300 days a year. And so people ask me all the time, like, what were you seeing? And I'm like, I really wasn't seeing anything because we didn't see each other. I had become very comfortable in our life, very...
We did try to go to couples therapy together.
One time.
That was terrible.
I will say, like...
We went out of there angrier than we went in.
The fact that we have such a great relationship today, despite all of the stuff that we went through, and that we have only had therapy together one time, is pretty good.
It's pretty good. Well, we've had our own therapy.
I'm impressed.
So, yeah. We've done our own therapy.
Yeah.
We've done pretty well. So how I saw myself at OCS and then after, and how you saw me, I'm sure maybe was different. But I can tell, I don't want to say I wasn't myself. Like, I enjoyed what I was, which was just, I just didn't have a care. I could have done anything to anybody. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered. And that's obviously a dangerous path. But I knew there was a time for a change. And the other piece I never mentioned at OCS, and you know this, I started getting headaches, and I had the worst the worst migraine headache I've ever had at OCS, really just doing nothing. We weren't working out. It just, and I asked for ibuprofen. I said, "Hey, this is gonna be bad. I get these migraines, and like when I get them, it's, I get nauseous and I can't see and all this stuff." And it took them like 4 hours just to get me
God.
some ibuprofen. And so it was just one of those things where I was wrong place, wrong time, maybe in another lifetime.
Yeah, I think I was very hopeful that because in my mind, like, you can do anything. You can pull it together, you can perform. I was just like, oh, he can do anything. He'll figure it out. And when you called me from the airport and you were like, I don't think I can get on this plane. And I was kind of like relieved on the inside, like, okay, because I was kind of having some reservations too. But then I think Cole like beeped in while you were talking to me and you were like, oh, this is Cole. I'm gonna ask him what he thinks. I'll call you back. And then you were like, he basically said, I have to do it. And so I was holding my breath a little bit for sure. But when you came home, I was like, I was relieved in some ways, kind of surprised in some ways, but also like proud of you for being true. I was like, of course, this was the worst idea ever.
I would have killed somebody there, honestly. Like,
Well, I'm
I
glad you
was at
didn't do
that
that.
point with some of the individuals that were like going through.
Yeah, I'm sure you had to show a ton of restraint.
Yeah, it was kind of painful.
That was definitely a breaking point. That was in 2010. And I know that, you wanted to sort of like put the family back together and take a break. At that point, you really didn't have a choice because you had like left the command for OCS. And so you really didn't have a place to go back to. Maybe you did, but it was time for a break. And so then we went to California. And that was really the first time that we lived together for years. And I thought that it was going to be, you remember I bought all the beach cruisers and
Before we even moved.
trying to save money. I was like, here, you can put them together.
Yeah, I
That
remember
was
that.
bad.
So we went out. So I get orders to California, go to the West Coast,
To be a buds instructor.
be an instructor. Initially I was supposed to go teach CQC just because, I just had a heavy background
What
in
is CQC?
close quarters combat. I just came from the, one of the top counterterrorism units. And so I just wanted to teach. I didn't want to yell at students. And they stuck me in buds in first phase of all places.
What is first phase compared to CQC?
It's like boot camp for SEALs. You don't have to be a very good SEAL to be a buds instructor. You just have to yell a lot and get in people's faces. And
Who's coming through first phase?
first phase
And what are the numbers?
Yeah, individuals that, civilians that want to be SEALs, right? They go through boot camp. They go through some prerequisite courses, and then they end up in Coronado, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then they go through SEAL qualification training, and then they get pinned to SEAL. And so I want to say stuck, but I got stuck as a first phase instructor, which just was another blow because it's just not where I wanted to be. The other story here, which I think is really good, is I went out there and to OCS as an E6. But this is a great story. Everybody knew I was going to OCS, and I was like, I forgot, first or second to put on E7.
E7 is like chief.
Yeah. I actually went into the master chief at the time, and I won't mention names because I don't want to make sure no one gets in trouble. But I just said, hey, I'm going to OCS. I was like, you need to give somebody else the E7. Like, just don't give it to me. You're going to give it to me. I'm going to go to OCS. I'm going to basically...
It'll be wasted.
It's a wasted...
promotion.
It's a wasted promotion. And I said, so-and-so, who deserves it, is going to get passed up. And I was like, you need to give it to him.
Which is very indicative of who you are. And I just want to go back really quickly to the fight, and we'll get into that another time. But one thing that my dad told my grandfather, his dad, was that despite the fact that you caused him so much turmoil, he really respected the fact that you protected your entire team, because by protecting them, you protected him from having to suspend half the team. So that is very, very in line with who you are.
Well, thank you. Well, we should probably talk a little bit about that. So when Amber initially earlier was talking about the picture she saw in the paper, when I got named the starting quarterback my sophomore year, I beat out 4 senior quarterbacks. We went out that evening, and long story short, we got in a big fight at a fraternity house that, again, wasn't started by me, but I
Everyone
tried to
loves
finish
to
it.
pick on you, though.
Me and Brian Bertowitz, our fullback, and the whole fraternity house jumped on us, and we were barely able to get away, and we ran into the rest of the football team who was just coming out of one of the clubs on the strip. And they saw that we were, I was like missing a sandal. So I wore sandals back then. And I think I had a black eye because someone had scratched my eye. And long story short, we just told them that the fraternity house had jumped us at their house. It was only 2 of us. The whole team decided to literally march back to the fraternity house. And I got there a couple minutes later, and they had completely destroyed the house. Like 8 individuals from the Pikes were sent to the hospital. It was a really gnarly fight. Long story short, I got in trouble. I was the only one that they recognized. I was the only white guy that was there, and that was the only one that they could pick out. And when I was questioned at the police station that evening, I wouldn't give up any of the other players on the team. And because of that, your dad suspended me.
Are you still mad at him about that?
I'm still a little angry, Pop, that you suspended me for 8
No,
games.
it's what got us together. You should be thankful for
Yeah.
it.
Well, so I didn't give up any of the other players in that fight, and I wound up being suspended and wound up ruining my whole football career, which I'm still a little frustrated
What
about.
lessons did you learn from that?
Nothing good happens after midnight.
That's what my dad has always said, actually.
A lot of good lessons, I guess. But yeah, so where were we going with that? There was a point.
Well,
to
you were okay. So you were saying that you were looking out for the other SEAL who was going to get passed up for chief, and
That's
then
right.
I made
So we took the story. So fast forward, talking to the mass chief, said, there's no reason to promote me. Matter of fact, I don't want to get promoted. Promote the other guy. He was a teammate. He was a brother. I went through green team with him. He was one of my best friends. And I said, make sure he gets made a chief. I'll stay as an E6 and I'll go to OCS. Well, I last a day and a half at OCS, and I go out to the West Coast. I'm still now an E6.
which is a big,
Well, I would have had to wait another 3 years to
Aw.
yeah, I mean, it was a nightmare. And so I went in to talk to the Master Chief there at the time, and I told him the story, and he just said, "Hey, don't worry. We'll take care of you." And then the next time that we were up for chief, they put chief on me, or I get promoted to E7. So I thought that was pretty cool.
just all to say that the transition from Virginia Beach, where we had been, where we'd raised the kids, where things had been, gradually getting more and more disconnected and difficult, I naively thought,
Life was gonna be good.
similar to Buds, just get through the 6 months, then everything's fine. No, I thought if we just get to California, everything's going to be fine, not realizing that I really didn't know you anymore. We hadn't lived together a long time. You were used to kind of doing your own thing. You lived a separate life, really. You would come home and be like, hey, where do you keep your plates?
No, I'd get frustrated because the kids would literally walk past me and go right to you and say hey, where's X, Y, and Z? And I remember I used to get frustrated at that and say, why aren't they asking me? I'm right here. Dad's
when you were
right
asking
here.
me the same thing, which is basically what the kids are asking.
So this was not an easy transition.
No, it was really bad. It was
Yeah.
really bad. So when we get to California, you're suddenly home all the time. And I think we were all kind of deer in headlights, oh, now you're home. It's not the same. You would come home for the weekend or for a week or 2 weeks, maybe, and then go right back out the door. And so you can live in that. You can know that this is just a week. It's the shift of energy or the feeling of having a stranger in the house is going to be over in just a few days. And then this is our new normal, where you were coming home from work every night. We were not used to that. The kids definitely did not know how to respond to you. I know you probably didn't know how to respond to them either. Like, do you discipline them? Do you not? Especially with Caden, I saw that he was trying to like be on perfect behavior, not, to get your attention or to not disappoint you. And so a lot of the challenge, like the survival mechanisms that I had to utilize as a single mom, which just truth be told, like guilty of letting him play video games, things like that were really helpful in surviving the day to day. I had no help. I had no family. I had friends. And we had a great neighborhood in Virginia Beach. But then when we get to California, like we don't have any of that. We don't have even a neighborhood that they can go out and play with friends. And so, Caden plays a lot of video games. And then we were just constantly butting heads about parenting styles, about, he plays too many video games. And I'm like, well, spend time with them. And you're like, well, I only want to spend time with them doing things that I want to do, which now that pays off because now I love surfing and maybe he'll golf one day. But I was very frustrated at the time, feeling like I can't win. And I'm sure the kids were feeling the same, just like, having you around for the first time ever and getting this like very different version of you. It was totally 180 of the you that I met. And so I just think that for military spouses and kids, I think they're the unsung heroes of the military community. And I definitely felt the disconnect and frustration and resentment and anger. And that is fueled, I think, by deployment cycles, training cycles, things that take you away from home. And then when you do come home, you can feel that anger and frustration and resentment. And then you're like, well, I don't even want to be here. So then you're gone more. And then it causes more of that. And it's just this like self-perpetuating cycle. So when we get to California, now we're stuck together all the time. That's when the wheels really started to come off. And I just remember thinking at one point, like, just get me back to Virginia Beach. I didn't love the tempo of the command, but I was very proud that you were there. And I know you really liked the operational tempo. And I think at one point, it was definitely after the Bin Laden raid. It was before extortion where 31 guys were killed. And, there were so many before that as well. But I remember there being a period of time that's like, I don't know how to be normal. I don't know how to spend a weekend with my family. I do know how to live in this dysfunction. I do know how to be a single parent, how to be completely disconnected from my spouse, how to rally with, my group of girlfriends whose husbands are all doing the same thing. We know how to take care of each other. I don't know how to take care of you. I don't even know how to have a conversation with you. And that was like very evident when we got to California.
Do you remember after the Bin Laden raid, I called the CMC back at the command? I'm like, hey, I'm coming back.
Oh, we were all like, let's go.
He was like, absolutely, whenever you want. And then we were like, all right, because let's have cool heads for a second.
That's what I thought we were doing. Bin Laden raid happened in May, and then extortion happened in August. So from May to August, it was like, let's just go back. There's such a relief in like getting back to the dysfunction. And then after the helicopter crash, I just remember like how every deployment, you just don't know if it just felt like someone was dying or multiple people were dying on every deployment. And so I was like, why would we go back into that? We got out of that. And so then, you didn't want to stay in the teams if you couldn't go back to the command. And so then after extortion, it was like, well, maybe getting out of the military is the answer.
Yeah, I remember Admiral Moore calling me right after extortion. He was just like speechless. And I just told him, I was like, sir, I'm just numb to these. He's like, yeah, but this one really hurts. And I said, it hurts, but I'm just numb. Like it's like doesn't even faze me. I don't even know what's happening right now. Initially, we're thinking, okay, maybe we'll go back and maybe things will be better. And then it just got bad after that. I started working as an instructor. I started really isolating. Thank God. I had like Maddie.
We didn't have our community there.
Yeah, we just didn't have this. We didn't have the same community. The guys are always great. I just was in a very isolated state at the time. Started seeing the psychologist, psych, think I went to the first brain clinic at that time, went to Walter Reed, NICO. Obvious had some things going on with my brain.
Yeah,
It just started getting like bad from that point.
when you're in a crisis situation, I think you just don't know. You're just like looking, you're topsy-turvy, the whole world is spinning, and you're just like, I need some sort of relief. Relief might be this. Okay, let's try it. Relief might be that. Worth a shot. And so it was like this massive decision to get out of the military, thinking we just need to make this spinning stop. And the spinning is all related to the SEAL teams and war. And so if we just get away from that, we should be okay. It was like, if we move to California, maybe that'll work. If we
if we keep running,
it'll get better. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yet there was really no foundation that we had anymore. And things continued to spiral.
So obviously what I was experiencing at that time, so now it's like 2010, 2011, 12, we had some incidences that were really gnarly that happened. Get out of the military, get a military retirement, and get sent off in the private sector. And what I want to really people to understand here is that what I was experiencing, I thought I was the only one experiencing this. Matter of fact, when I went to see the first time I went to see the psych in San Diego, he said, Marcus, you're over the 200th SEAL that has come in over the last couple years with literally the exact same issues. And he goes, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, and I'm not really equipped. He goes, you guys are all experiencing sleeplessness, headaches, isolation. You're angry, you're frustrated, you can't think, you can't focus, you're having trouble at home. Literally, he goes, I can replicate that story hundreds of times over. And he goes, I don't know what to do.
But no one was talking about this.
Nobody,
and he knows because people are comfortable telling him behind closed doors. But within the community, it's like, you're white knuckling, numbing with alcohol and becoming more and more disconnected from absolutely everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think the obvious answer at the time was, if you want to label it, PTSD. But as we know, that's probably part of it or some of it or all of it for many. But we also know there's a brain piece to this, right? There's a traumatic brain injury component to why so many individuals were struggling the same exact way. While you're having, 1 second you can be extremely angry and frustrated and fly off the handle, to the next minute you're hysterical crying for no reason. Like, how does that happen? Why does it happen? And so these were the things that I was experiencing. And these are the things that so many veterans are experiencing at the exact same time. And most of us, including myself, were really isolating. We don't want to tell other people that we're struggling. Maybe one or two really close friends, when you find out that they're experiencing the same exact, I don't want to call them symptoms, but going through the same things that you're going through, you start to open up a little bit. But there's like a whole world out there of individuals that are really struggling and they're not asking for help. At least they weren't asking for help. It's a lot better now, obviously, and we'll get into how our, move into what we're doing now. But, if you want to fast forward, I hit a breaking point in like 2016, end of 2017. You were able to find me some alternative treatment, psychedelic therapy, flat out changed my life. It saved my life. It kept our marriage together, kept our family together, and we wanted to pay it forward, right? And you and I we never quit. And I would consider us servant leaders, and all we wanted to do was help our friends. And so we started, at the time, we started a charity called Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, really just to pay it forward to our community who, as we knew, some individuals who were experiencing the exact same thing that I was experiencing. And that's kind of how it started.
Well, how I view it is, thank goodness for the OCS debacle, because you would have kept on deploying. You would have continued to unravel our lives.
I would have been a great officer. What are you talking about?
No, I mean, you probably would have, but the set of circumstances that took you away from the command, I never thought you would leave the command. I never thought you would retire or leave the military before 20 years. And so it was very unexpected. But if I'm looking backwards, even your fight in college is kind of how I met you. The first thing I said to you, I wouldn't have known you otherwise if your picture wouldn't have been in the paper. I saw you and I said, oh, you're the troublemaker because of the fight. And then OCS took us out of Virginia Beach, out of our comfort zone, really accelerated the spiral. But you did exit the military earlier than you had anticipated, earlier than some of your friends, which has allowed you to start to walk a path that is helping so many behind you. And it's like you needed to get out at exactly that time to hit these perfect points in time that have occurred since. So I don't view either one of those things as being bad. I view those things as being catalysts for so much good that has come because of it. And like, we can get into some more details later on, but it's all to say that the rock bottom, the perfect timing of it, has allowed us to launch an organization that is now helping thousands of veterans and potentially tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands through some of the policy work that we're doing. So
I love you. I love you. You're always so positive.
Right? How can you not be?
No, you're the best.
I mean, you can look at it as a mistake or you can look at it as a launching pad. And to me, I think it's a launching pad and it's helped a lot of people.
Amen. I think that concludes our first episode. Bravo. Good job. And let's talk a little bit about what this next journey is going to entail, starting with this show.
All right. So for me, I just hope to kind of step out from behind the laptop, if you will, and growing and building not just an organization, but a movement that is starting to wrap the globe. We have an amazing team at Vets that's handling the day-to-day, starting to share more about the origins of our story and the work that we're doing. And a lot of what has worked for us in getting to where we are. Like, it hasn't happened accidentally. We've put a lot of intention into it. And so, for people who are like, I've hit rock bottom too, and I don't know where to go from here, psychedelics may not be the answer, or psychedelics alone may not be the answer. And I think we're known primarily for that. That was your tool, not mine. It works for some, not others. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just getting your hands on a bag of mushrooms or even crossing the border and going into Mexico for a retreat experience. You have to be supported. You have to be intentional, and you have to show up for yourself as an individual before you can show up in a relationship. So me working on me, you working on you, allowed us to work together. And we've really unearthed that initial connection that we had. You've come so much more into the guy that I met and fell in love with. And we've also grown in ways that I think are very unique and very special and easily replicatable.
So the show is going to be about relationships.
Yeah.
How we can work on relationships.
And individually.
So how we can work on ourselves, be better humans, show up for ourselves, show up for our spouse, show up for our kids, show up for our business partners, show up better in life. When we're better, everyone's better. When we're struggling, everyone's struggling. So that's what this show is going to be about. It's a way for us to continue to pay it forward. We paid it forward over these last 8 years through our charity work, which we've, I hate to call it a charity because it's a freaking business and it's really busy. It's 7 days a week, 24/7, 365. And I think this is the next step to continue to pay it forward, reach a larger audience, be able to answer questions, be able to bring people on that we're excited to talk to, that are not just successful individuals, but have also worked on themselves, worked on their families.
It's about leveling up. It's about showing up and leveling up and realizing that there's no finish line. It's a constant evolution. It's constantly achieving, maintaining, elevating.
Clint Bruce said it best. He's like, the problem with us is we climb a mountain and then we realize that when we get up to the mountain and dust ourselves off, and we look in the distance, we realize that there's another mountain that's larger than the one we just climbed. And so we have to climb down the other side and then climb up the other mountain. It's just a constant journey. that I think individuals like you and I have this burning desire to continue moving forward and helping individuals. And we enjoy seeing people happy.
True. Yes. We want people to actually live and not just exist. Definitely don't need a white knuckle life. There's a better way to do it. Living authentically is another thing that's really important to me. A lot of the work that I did had to do with who God created me to be before the world put itself on me. And I had to like dig deep and find that again. And it has allowed me to have this sort of confidence that it's not a fake confidence. It's a confidence that has allowed me to achieve things that maybe I wouldn't have thought possible if I hadn't sort of hit rock bottom. So there's a lot of hope in it. And I think that another important thing, we're known as being like kind of mysterious, but in the psychedelic space, we're also very authentic. So I want to show up in a way that's authentic and relatable, truly who we are. And also kind of go beyond the psychedelic stamp that we might have, and then also show up for other populations beyond the veteran community. We certainly have a lot of skin in the veteran game, but these sort of lessons and transformational opportunities could extend to anyone.
And on that note, we thank everyone for listening to our first episode, and we look forward to more, and we'll see you soon.